Hello chaps and chappets, and welcome to another Double Back Monthly. This one's for September 2017. The Double Back Monthly is a monthly blog video that I've set up in conjunction with my Patreon, so you guys can see everything that I've been doing. No, you don't want to see everything I'm doing. You don't want to see me like laying the kitchen floor, do you? Or changing nappies. No. So this video is just primarily everything board game related. So I split this into 4 sections. The first section is like a recap of all the videos that I've reviewed, all the games that I've reviewed in video form. And then my second section is my first impression section, where I talk about games and that I've played for the first time and possibly the last time in the existence of that board game. Yes, and then I go to my question time section where you guys can ask me questions. You can write questions in the comments below and I will answer them. And then I finish off with my monthly prize draw for those patrons that have pledged $5 or more. So, without further ado, let's crack on, because this coffee smells really nice. I can smell it, it smells nice. I've got to drink it, you know. And again, if I don't crack on, I'll have lots of bits of video to edit out as well. That might take a bit of a while, which is longer. Yeah. And because these videos take a long time, you might see me in a different t-shirt in the next bit, because I've probably filmed it like a couple of days later. Yeah. It's really been a month of Kickstarters, because I've done 2 Kickstarter previews, which I'll start off with by saying Outlaws. Outlaws Last Man Standing is a 2-player bluffing deduction game set in the Wild West, and it is it's a Kickstarter. Unfortunately, it's finished now, so you can't really pledge for it anymore, but it's basically a 2-player game. You got this back and forth trying to deduce the other player's characters, and will deduce what the tiles are in the middle of the table. And you can win it one of 3 ways. You can either get your governor elected to the town by getting lots of votes from the tokens, or you can get your hitman to take out the other player's governor, or you can arrest the hitman with your sheriff. And that's it. There's 3 ways to win this game, and so like going for a strategy is quite hard. But at the same time, it's quite challenging because you're trying to deduct what the other player's strategy is, and you don't want to reveal what you have in front of you, because you have all these characters and they're hidden from the other player, but only you can see them, and vice versa. So it's a very quick playing, really enjoyable game. I really like this game. I back this one as well because I like it that much, and that is Outlaws. The second Kickstarter game that I did a video for was Potato Pirates, which is an educational mathematical programming game where players will be trying to either find all the king potatoes or try to eliminate all the other players' ships, and they are the only player available. The game is a very light card game where you will have 2 ships, and each ship will have 10 potatoes on it, and if you lose all your potatoes, that ship sinks. And you can move these potatoes about, so if you're worried about someone wiping one of your ships out, you can like save it. There is a lot of take that in the game. There's some cards which will stop other players from attacking you. There are cards which will let you steal stuff from other players, which is quite nasty. But for a family style game, it is quite fun. Now basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to also be loading up your ships with these like mathematical equations. These attack cards and control cards. The attack cards will do the damage. The control cards will either multiply the damage or put certain conditions to how the damage works. So for instance, you could have a control card which says if a ship has more than 4 potatoes on it, do 2 damage, and that will loop and go until that ship has less than 4 potatoes. So it does quite a lot of damage. And then there's other cards which do if and when situations. So if a ship has less than 3 potatoes on it, you can do a damage to it. If it has more than 3, then you can do a different damage to it. And yeah, it's quite a nice little challenge. It's quite funny, but you know, for kids, you know, they can get a bit upset when you sink their battleship. But anywho, that's Potato Pirates. And the one review that I have done has taken up so much of my time just to get to a certain point to be able to review it. It came through the post. It was a Kickstarter game. It is, of course, The Seventh Continent. Now, this is an adventure game which you can play solo. So I've reviewed it solo only. I haven't reviewed it playing it with other players. And it is like a choose your own adventure. And it's also like an old point and click computer game. Or for me personally, it is like playing Skyrim on my table. You are going to be plonked onto an island. You're going to have a curse put upon you, and you have to find out how to get rid of this curse. You're going to be exploring. You're going to be doing lots of different actions because you can do multiple things during this game. You are going to get hurt. You are going to die. You are going to restart and go again. But the thing is, you'll have that knowledge of how you died before, so you'll be able to get past that, hopefully, or avoid that, or, you know, be more conscientious about how you use your energy, because that's another way that you can die. Every time you do an action or build something, it requires energy. The energy comes from a deck of cards, and you're going to be drawing from them. And as that energy depletes, so does your life. And when that deck runs out, you use the discard pile of that deck to continue playing, but you're going to be drawing randomly from that deck, and there are some curse cards in there. And once you draw one of those in doing an action, that's it, game over, dude. Go back to square one and do it again. Now, that may not sound like there's a lot of replayability, because you're like basically doing a choose your own adventure book. Oh, back to paragraph 1, read the whole thing again, get rid of all my equipment. Yes, but there is a lot of replayability in the fact that you can practically just go everywhere. This is not so linear as a choose your own adventure book, and also there are lots of random events that happen. You're not always going to go to a spot and find the same thing all the time. There may be times when you do find the same thing. There may be times when you find something different. There may be a time when you haven't got a piece of equipment to get past a certain point. There may be times when you have got that piece of equipment to get past a certain point. And so it's like being aware and preparing and getting ready. This game is so great, and it's absorbed so much of my time, and I really enjoy this game. It is a 10 out of 10 for me for my Board Game Geek rating. Unfortunately, the technical review is a 9 out of 10. There's just a few little niggles that I have. There is, of course, a few errors on some of the cards which can destroy the game, but that's being corrected. And also the cards that you shuffle all the time, they're starting to get a little bit destroyed around the edge. Only very slightly noticeable, but you know, if you're going to sink this many hours into a game and it's starting to, you know, show a bit signs of wear and tear, yeah. So yeah, that's The Seventh Continent. And I also got round to recording a Berkey and Badger Board Game Babble podcast. Yes, one, but I was alone. Due to the fact that Berkey has put his own Kickstarter together for his game toppers. Not table toppers, game toppers. They are little bits of wood. They're not little bits of wood, they're quite big bits of wood. They sit on your table, and they kind of give you that kind of geek chic-ish, you know, this is a real kind of casino-like table so you can play your board games on. So yeah, I did one podcast, and I had a co-host, and that was Mr. Jamie Johnson from Holy Grail Games. As I said before, Outlaws, that's the guy behind Outlaws. He gave us some insights about how the company was going, and the episode was about printing money, and our company is kind of like using certain tropes to rope us in, not grope or rape, but rope us in, I can't even say it, rope us in to spending money with them all the time. And I'm not just talking about they do good quality games, I'm talking about, you know, expansions, I'm talking about add-ons, I'm talking about re-editions, yeah. So we had a good old chat about that, so if you want to go and check that out, you can always go and go to the Berkey and Badger YouTube channel, or you can go into the Berkey and Badger podcast, or you can download it from any of the podcast channels that you normally use. So there you have it. That's everything that I've done video and audio wise. More to come. Welcome to the dark side of the room. Or actually the messy side of the room. This is the messy side, that's the clean side over there. Yes, first and last, my first impressions segment, which I thought I'd do it in front of my computer because I do try to register every single game that I play on Board Game Geek, which is really useful because I can just look back here and go, oh yeah, I played that game that many times? Wow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you I've got 4 new games that I played for the first time here. Actually 3. The 4th one, I don't know if it counts or not because I played the prototype before and now I have the final version of the game. So I'll put that into the next section. But let's start with Massive Darkness. Massive Darkness is a massive dungeon crawling experience where it's kind of based on the zombie side mechanics as a cooperative game, where players are going to be heroes going into a dungeon and having to complete a quest. The great thing about it is that it comes with a lot of minis, and my friend actually got the game, showed me the size of the box that it came in, and it was big. There was a lot of stuff in it. But is the game that great? Well, it was a dungeon crawling game, and I do have a thing for dungeon crawling games. And this one was co-op, which was interesting because the system that they used was basically cards. You go into a room and you reveal this card and it tell you what monsters are in there, and it will tell you how they move and attack, and if they attack and they move. And so you're basically kind of calculating your movements as a team, trying not to split up too much and try and stay together to try and take out these monsters, which give you experience points, which you could spend there and then. You'd have it like a sheet of paper where you check things off, you know, go, okay, I'm now level, I've got this much experience, I can click that, and so when I do firing at distance, I can go a bit further, or I can knock a monster back when I do it. And so you had this kind of flow chart of your powers, so you can go, okay, yeah, so I've ticked this one off, so if I want to I can tick this one off, which is like an upgrade of the first power, or I can go and unlock another power and bits and pieces like that. The game felt very kind of standard, kind of normal dungeon crawling game. There weren't many surprises. It was just a case of, oh, there's some different monsters there, oh, there's some gnomes, oh, there's some trolls, oh, there's this there. And you know, we managed to walk through at a pretty steady rate. There's kind of like a formula to the game. We found that it was like, well, if we stay together and we try not to, you know, do anything stupid, we can kind of work this out. And because players can choose which order they go in, that kind of helped as well, because then, you know, if someone uncovered a group of monsters which were, you know, were magic prone, but your magic user had found them, you could go, right, okay, know what, you know, these guys are going to come in and they're going to hit them because they're very prone to physical attack. So it was not a bad experience. It's quite enjoyable, but I kind of was falling asleep because it felt like we were just going to a room looking for the thing that we needed. If it wasn't there, we go to another room, and then we go to another room, and then we go to another room. It felt very linear. You know, I would like my dungeon crawlers to go a bit more, you know, you could go and do this and you could go and do that. So yeah, it was enjoyable, but you know, it's would I play it again? There was nothing really there to drag me back, you know, apart from, you know, my character had leveled up certain things and maybe I can use them in the next mission. But it's not bad. It looked nice. The material was really good. I liked the little tray that everything sits in, which works really well, and it's just very well presented. But apart from that, yeah, it was okay. Massive Darkness. The next game that I want to talk about is a game that's been sat on my shelf for nearly over 2 years. Yeah, I bought this game because of a recommendation from a friend, telling me that it's the best game in the world. Every year he tells me it's the best game in the world. And that game is Cosmic Encounter. Now, Cosmic Encounter is a kind of really just a negotiating game. You're basically forced into a situation where you have to attack another player, and you choose which one of their planets you want to try and take over and put a colony on. And then you can ask everyone around the table if they want to help you in your attack, and obviously the defender can do the same. You do kind of a very simple, play a card with an attack value on it. You add that to the amount of ships that you send in to do the attack, and the one with the highest score wins the battle. So if you're defending the planet, you get to send all these other alien spaceships to the cemetery in the middle of the warp. Whereas if you are the attacker, you get to send all the defending units into the warp, but you actually get to install yourself on that planet. And you get a point for each planet, which is not your own, that you get to install a base on, you get a point. And obviously if people are helping you, they also get a point. Now, I think the interesting fact or feature of this game is the fact that each player will have a different race, and each race has a different power, and each power is something that breaks the base rules of drawing a card, seeing who you're going to attack, choose who you're going to attack, send some attacks, get some friends, play a card to get the result, and then resolve the result. And that's where the fun kicks in, because at the beginning of the game nobody knows which alien race you are until you activate your power for the first time. And so during this game, I played the loser, which meant that if I wanted to, before I play a card for my attack, I could say, well, I'll activate my power, which means that if I lose, I win, which kind of like twists the game for the other player. And then I have to think, have they got really high cards or really low cards? So maybe I should best off not saying anything about my power and just say, well, I'm just going to do a normal attack, knowing that they have got no good cards to defend themselves with. So it's a really enjoyable game. We played a 3-player game. It felt good, but if it had 4 or 5 players, like the maximum level of the game, I think this game would have been hilarious fun, as players would just going back and forth, bashing each other over the head, and trying to win this game. It's a very old game. I really enjoyed it, and this is definitely my cup of tea. And this is a game that I can't wait to play again. So I'm looking forward to playing this again. It's a bit awkward in French, but I still did have a good time playing it, which is more than I can say for a lot of games. A lot of games you just play and they're like, yeah, but this was good. And I'd like to, what's the word? Pat my friend on the back and say, thank you for choosing this game. This is actually quite a good game. And I can see it being a lot more fun the more you play it, and the more you try to deduce other people's powers. Because again, one of the players didn't reveal their power, and they just had ships going into the graveyard all the time. And it was like, well, they'd win the game if they managed to get rid of all of their ships. And that was their power. And it was like, wow, I didn't think of that. But really enjoyable, really liked it. Cosmic Encounter. And now I have Cedars from series Exodus, which is an auction style game set in space. But it has this really ingenious auction system. Okay, this is very complex to explain, but it's very simple to play in theory. Okay, you're basically going to be building some modules and putting up to 2 personnels on those modules. Each module and each personnel is completely different from all the other 200 which are in the game. Well, actually there's a few copies, but not many. There's like about 150 different cards in this game, and they all do different things, and they all score in different ways, and they all work off of each other in different ways. And what will be happening in this game is you'll have this board laid out, and you'll have a certain amount of these cards spaced out on them. Each space is connected to another, or maybe to more if you're playing with more players, because we only played a 2-player game this time. And what will happen is on your turn, you'll have 6 discs. Each disc has a color which represents it, and all the different cards come in one of these 6 different colors. And you're going to be picking up one of these discs and you're going to be placing it in between 2 or maybe 3 of the cards that you're hoping to win. And you are allocated an X amount of cubes that you can then place next to. You're like bidding for them. So the more cubes you have for a card, at the end of the round, when you start distributing them out, the player that has the most cubes wins that bid, and therefore you take that card. So as I said, you'll place out your 6 discs, or maybe less if you're playing a bigger game, hoping to win these people and these modules. After that's done, you go through it in order to see who's won. So if you've got a disc which is next to 1, and you've got the most bids next to that card, you get to take that card, and you also have to take your disc, which could be a problem. Now, it's not really a problem, but there's a strategy in which discs you take back. You obviously got to take the disc back which is next to that card, but later on you might get into a situation where you've got no discs next to a card, which means that if you've got the winning vote, if you've got the most bids on it, you get to take that card and you don't remove a disc, which is good because there's a disc left on the board. At the end of that round, when all the cards have been removed, if you've got any discs left, you get these little chips which tell you that you can place more bids for that color next turn. So it's kind of like a balancing mechanism for if you didn't actually get many bids on your turn. If you only managed to get like 2 out of the 6 cards that you wanted, you're going to get a chance on your next round that when you place your disc, that green disc might be worth 4 bids. So you might be able to put 4 cubes on a card, and that will guarantee you the win unless someone is nasty and says, well, I've got 4 as well, so I'm going to block you. After all that auction phase is done, players will take turns and they will go, okay, well, I'm going to add this module, I'm going to sell that to give me some money so I can build this module or hire this person, and you'll connect all these up. And these characters, you have attacking characters which will steal money from another player or kill another player, or not kill a player, but kill one of their characters. You can arrest another player's character. You can have a character which doesn't just arrest another character, but it puts it into your prison. And then you can have a character which will, if you have any characters in prison, you can free them. And there's all these different powers. It's not, as I said, there's about 150 different cards in this deck, and they all do different things, and they all bounce off of each other. And then you do a scoring round at the end. And you'll do this 4 times. You do the bid and auction, you'll do the construction and, hiring of people and selling some cards to get some money to help you buy stuff. And you do this 4 times and you do a scoring round. And I really enjoyed the game, but I found it extremely hard because this game requires some kind of knowledge beforehand of all the different cards and all the different powers and how they react with each other. So when you look at the board, you go, okay, my strategy, I'm going to go for this kind of strategy. I'm going to take that, I'm going to bid high for those 3 cards there. And because I was playing, Oazar, randomly, au pif, I didn't get very far. I didn't get very far. Apparently the games can be very tight, and sometimes they can be very wide open spaces. There's like 100 points difference between first and second sometimes. But that's kind of really the experience of the cards that comes out and having your knowledge of the cards. It looks beautiful. As I said, this auction system is really great. I really like it. I just kind of wish there was less power, so there was less for you to think about. But yeah, an overall really good game. Definitely my cup of tea, and I wouldn't say no to playing it again. And that is Cedars from the series Exodus. So let's go to the question, which I don't really have formed in my head, and this video's probably gone on a bit too long than normal, so I'm going to try and keep this short as possible without stuttering. Now, I mentioned that the Seventh Continent should really be going into my first impression segment, because the first time I played it, I was like, wow, because obviously it was, but I've also reviewed it because it had that wow factor, and I kept playing it, and I played it for, I'm up to about 44 hours worth of gameplay so far. and I have not found it repetitive and boring in any sense of the manner. There are some things where you go, okay, yeah, I've been here before, I've done this, I'm going to do that, and right. And everyone is raving about this game as well. Everyone is saying that this is the best game since sliced bread, which is what I actually said, I think. Or did I say it was the best game since something else? But then there's going to be a lot of naysayers out there that say, well, the only way to get hold of this game is through Kickstarter. When is it coming to a shop? Well, for some companies, Kickstarter is the best and the only way that they can produce their games. Now, I'm no insider and I don't know the money that's involved, but for me personally, for a Kickstarter, they are cutting out the middlemen. They are cutting out the distributor and the retailer. They're doing everything themselves. So you're actually going to be paying a little bit less than you would do if you was to actually buy this from the store, which is great. But the only problem is, you will have to pay the postage and packaging, which is what you would have paid for in the distributing. But at the same time, you are still getting a lot of stuff for a smaller amount of money than you would if the game was bought from retail. Let's take Monolith, for example. Their first game, Conan, was actually $90, if I recall very well, when you backed it on Kickstarter. And that was just the base set. But then you also got all the Kickstarter stretch goals that were unlocked. So you got quite a lot of plastic and card and scenarios to play just with that $90. Asmodee had the rights to sell Conan. So they could sell Conan and they were trying to sell it at a reasonable price, but because they had to have a distributor and they also have to have the retailers, well, Asmodee are kind of like distributors, that incurred a toll, which meant that they would have had to sell the game at a higher price. Now, the value that Monolith were making the game was at such a low point as it was, that they didn't make a lot of money from the game. But because they had to go through a distributor and retail, they added on their costs, which would have meant that the game sells and in a shop retail for around $230 per game. And that's a lot of money when you consider you could have bought it from Kickstarter for $90. So Asmodee didn't want to sell it for this much, so they chopped the price down. So what happens is when you chop the top of the tree, it stunts the growth of the rest of the tree. Yeah? So they probably took it down to about $110 for the base game, which means that the distributor takes his cost and the retailer takes their cost, and then there's the cost of making the game, and then there's no money for the guys that actually designed the game, made the game, and made it a reality. So therefore, now Kickstarter is a different beast entirely to the current, retail distribution, producing, publishing system that is around. And Kickstarter is not the perfect solution, but the thing is, it opened the door for many, many things and many people. It also has kind of like given another way of using this, this thing that you've made, someone gives you a piece of bread, okay? They've invented bread, and you go, oh yeah, and they eat it, that's nice. And then someone comes along and goes, well, what happens if you put it over a fire and you burn it to a crisp? Does it taste as, oh yeah, this is toast. So that's the same kind of thing as what Kickstarter is happening. Is this kind of like evolution of this is what we set Kickstarter up to be. Now it's evolving into this, and then publishers are actually publishing games on Kickstarter instead of publishing themselves, because they can gauge how many people are interested in the project, and so they can know how many copies to make roughly. And as I said, they're making a good amount of money, and they're investing a lot more value into the product that they're sending you, because they can do. Because if they don't put those high quality standard minis or cards or whatever into the game, they will have to cut their costs on it just so you can go out and buy the game at a reasonable price. Which is, yeah, but at the same time you're like, well, these cards are not that great. Oh, these minis have still got bits on them, and and who knows where Kickstarter's going to be in several years' time. They might be making sandwiches with them now. So yeah, Kickstarter, it is a bummer of a thing. I was never aboard Kickstarter when it came out. I was like, nah. But now it's just like, well, you just have to kind of gauge for yourself what's the best thing for you. These people are not trying to rip you off. they're trying to make a living as well, and they're trying to give you an amazing product normally. Sun is shining in the sky, there ain't a cloud inside. It's hard to believe it's autumn. Anywho, time for the prize draw. I am going to be drawing a lucky winner from courtesy of the 7th continent. No, this is actually Eldorado, sorry, which kind of resembles the 7th continent. But anywho, let's crack on. The prize draw is to win a digital copy of Last Night, my CD soundtrack. And I'm also going to throw in some special promo cards for one of you lucky winners. And as I said, courtesy of Eldorado, I've picked a color for each person. Kevin is going to be blue, Curly is going to be red, Elephant is going to be yellow, and Olivier is going to be white. We will do this as quickly as we can because this video is probably the 12-hour remix, and I am not looking, and I'm shaking, and I'm doing that, and I've dropped one, and it's a white, which means that it is Olivier. Congratulations, mate. I will pop this dans les boîtes de lettres pour vous, et ça arrive à bientôt. Ça arrive bientôt. Félicitations encore. Bon, that's all that I have time for. If you want to take part in this prize draw, you can go to my Patreon and donate a tad of money in my direction, and then maybe win yourself some promos, and of course you would definitely win a CD soundtrack. Not the 7th continent, because that's free. And if you like this video, share it and whatever. But that's my blog for now. I will say ciao for now, and remember, you don't have to buy every single board game out there because there's just too damn many of them.
Just sitting at the table next to Felicia would be quite nice. Wouldn't it be good? I got some board games, I don't know how many. Just like